Did you know that the ancient art of falconry is a UNESCO-listed cultural heritage of humanity and is being used in Australia and elsewhere in the world as an effective rehabilitation tool? Extensive free flight, often including the use of drones and robotic artificial fly and prey, are helping previously injured and orphaned raptors to reach elite levels of fitness, evidenced through the most technologically advanced real-time GPS tracking, and all prior to final release back to the wild. Of course, we also use every rehabilitation in cases where we think it might help, and we have our own purpose-built hack station, which has been used very successfully in the past, most recently with the brood of orphaned brown goshawks. Hi, my name is Michael Calvin and I'm part of the Raptor Fliers Association of Western Australia. I want to show you how we use free flight and falconry techniques in the rehabilitation of some of the raptors that we work with. So let's get straight on with it. So it's important to understand that we focus our attention more on the dynamic hunter species rather than the searchers. It's the dynamic hunters that are more likely to benefit and may need this type of rehabilitation to get super fit, strong and back up to full hunting capability. Being as dynamic as they are, that can be very, very difficult for youngsters and also adults that have spent any amount of time in care and need to get fit again. We'll be taking a look at some of the recent technological advances which help us in this work, particularly drones, flying wings and rope ray. I'll show you how we use real-time GPS tracking. We use the Marshall system, which helps us to accurately measure and record flight performance and fitness progression, and later in the process helps us to identify and evidence independent hunting. We'll then recap some of the key contributing factors of raptor rehabilitation using these techniques. Then we'll finish off with The Falcon's Guardian, a short film by William Ross. So we're focusing particularly on the dynamic hunter species. Very fast, agile, need to be very, very fit and very, very good hunters. So to demonstrate why we may need to use these free flight and falconry techniques, we're going to take a look at the early life cycle of the peregrine falcon. But of course these same principles can be applied to any of the raptor species where it may be appropriate in the particular circumstances. So although they take the first flights at about 42 days old, they're still totally reliant upon the parents for food and protection and to teach them the ways of the wild and how to survive. They play around an awful lot with each other, spend a lot of time on the wing and a lot of time sitting down. But within 1 to 2 weeks, they're starting to get some real fitness about them. And over the next few weeks, they make more and more attacks and become successful hunters in their own right. They are taught by their own parents, the very best teachers of all. But these hunting skills are learned and polished to a very high level. And although brutal to watch for some people, learning these skills is absolutely necessary. Because despite this seemingly perfect preparation, a very high percentage of these young falcons will not survive their first winter. What chance then, we may ask ourselves, does a young falcon have that missed out on all this natural preparation? Here we have an orphaned peregrine falcon that is now totally reliant upon our care. Somehow we must develop this falcon from a helpless baby into a successful hunter. So the model system is raptor rehabilitation in the wild environment without any physical boundaries. It's intended to be a bolt-on to conventional raptor rehabilitation and only for those raptors that may benefit. By proven, suitably qualified practitioners and with standardised training where it's required, to the very highest standards and to approved codes of practice, transparently and with accountability. There have been some recent technological advances over the last 10 years, including drones, flying wings and rope ray. We can make some simple modifications to drones, such as by attaching a lure, such as a pigeon wing on a long line, and a parachute. The parachute can be put into a little holder, and the drone can be flown up and away, and then the falcon or hawk sent away after it. And almost right away, we're getting the falcon to act as though it's hunting. It's flying away from the handler and going off and catching, in inverted commas, its prey. There are now flying wings designed to do exactly the same thing, except they can fly up to 100 kilometers an hour, do loop-the-loops, twist and turn, and really push falcons to the limits of what they're able to do, building elite fitness levels that we've never been able to achieve before. And we also now have artificial flying prey. So the difference here is that it's flown like a little model aeroplane, but it just looks like a bird or a prey species, and the falcon can fly up and away and after it and actually catch it. So we're really starting to simulate hunting. What we must remember though is all of these artificial tools, although they're a great aid for us to get the falcon fit, flying away from us, starting to get into hunting mode, they're only really a stepping stone. The falcon or hawk still has to learn to catch its natural prey in the wild environment. We now use Marshall GPS tracking, which is real-time tracking over a Google map. It shows us distances flown, climb rates, average and maximum speeds, and any hunting attempts. These transmitters are very small. They weigh 8 grams with the battery, and they can be fitted to a backpack in this case. They can also be leg mounted or tail mounted. This next graphic shows how we can use the GPS data to evidence fitness progression. So the first flight here is the yellow line, and the data is listed down below it. But we'll leave that on the screen, and then we can overlay it with subsequent flights later in the process. You can see that after just a few weeks, the falcon is building incredible levels of fitness. And here's a 3D visualization of some of the Marshall GPS data. We can see the falcon flying, we can see her climbing, we can see her getting onto thermals and gaining great height. We can see her make hunting attempts. This graphic shows how we can see how fast the falcon's going as she comes down the stoop. You'll notice at the bottom there she reached a speed of 223 kilometers an hour and then bled some speed off as she made a final attack. In this case it was unsuccessful, but it's interesting to get this data. As a point of interest, the small magneto circle, which is indicated by the blue arrow, just to compare aviary rehabilitation to free flight rehabilitation, that's actually a proportional representation of an aviary which would be 100 meters in circumference. This falcon would have outflown that in the first 1 to 2 seconds of this flight. And here's a graphic showing some of the speeds these falcons can achieve during free flight rehabilitation. This one got up to 257 kilometers an hour. So let's recap with some key contributing factors of free flight Raptor rehabilitation. It's done in the natural environment without any physical boundaries. In the hands of skilled practitioners, the experience for the Raptor can be virtually stress-free, and there can be significant social and educational values. And perhaps most importantly of all, we can evidence proven levels of fitness and hunting ability prior to release back to the wild. I don't know what first drew me to raptors and practicing the ancient art of falconry, but I do know that it's been a big part of my life for as long as I can remember. I trained my first kestrel when I was about 12 years old, and I've been working with birds of prey ever since. I've developed a deep understanding of raptors and what makes them tick, and so far I've trained and flown about 35 hawks, falcons and an eagle, all of which became successful hunters in the wild. Falconry for me was never a sport, or even my hobby. It's so much more than that. Now, Here in Western Australia, I use my falconry skills as a method of raptor rehabilitation, which deeply connects me with the wild environment from which I came, and about which I've become so passionate.
This young peregrine falcon is named Lucky, although she certainly didn't have the luckiest start to life after being orphaned in a mine site accident. Spending time with her and temporarily desensitizing her to the training environment is a falconry technique known as manning, which eliminates stress and allows her to reach her full potential. Flight feathers are critically important for survival in the wild. Unless she's kept in pristine condition, she will not be able to fly quick enough to catch her prey. Although falconry as a hunting art and as a means of successfully rehabilitating raptors has been around for thousands of years, the methods have changed very little. In recent years, however, the development of real-time GPS tracking is revolutionizing the training, free flying, and now the rehabilitation of these birds. The Marshall GPS tracking system provides second-by-second data on the exact location of the bird, its speed, altitude, distance away from us, and the total distance flown. Because of this, we can now encourage a greater freedom to explore and build incredible levels of fitness and flying skills, and eventually her hunting skills, in a very natural way and without fear of losing the bird before all her skill sets are fully up to speed. Remote-controlled drones and artificial flying prey, such as the roe crow, can be used to build elite fitness, allowing the falcon to fly up and away from the handler to chase and capture their simulated prey.
So today we're out on the farm at near Cunderdin, a couple of 100 k's out from the city. As you can see, it's a big, vast open space. I think we've got about 20,000 acres here, and we got permission off the farmer because he came and visited us when we were doing a display at Yorkshire a couple of years ago, and he got really interested in what we're doing. As most people are, the public are very, very supportive of this kind of work, which is nice. And he allowed us to come on this land and to camp and stay in the caravan, and we've got all this wide open space where it's a natural habitat for peregrine falcons. And we come here and let her go, and she can fly around. She's free to do wherever she wants for an hour to 2 hours every day. And basically we're just exposing her to a natural habitat where she needs to survive, so she's got to work all this out for herself. We're just the ground-based observers while she does that. We provide the safety net, and at the end of each session we call her back in or go and retrieve her. Yesterday, for example, on a similar one of these flights, she covered a total of 72 kilometres over about an hour and 50 minutes. And whilst we're watching it all on the GPS unfolding, we could see that at one point she was actually the highest she's ever been so far, and she got up to 1.2 kilometres high. So she's covering a vast area from that, and that's what peregrine falcons do in the wild. They hunt from way up high. So she's doing that.
The information can be saved from each flying session and then applied to the Avery app, which allows us to view it in 3D, overlying a map of the area. The data assists us in making realistic and accurate appraisal of whether the falcon is capable of surviving in the wild environment. From a rehabilitation point of view, this is invaluable.
The true measure of whether any raptor can survive after final release ultimately comes down to its ability to successfully and consistently hunt its natural prey in the wild environment. This is literally life and death for them, and particularly so for the more dynamic hunter species, such as Lucky. She's just had a flight. She stooped, we watched her stoop, there was a wild peregrine with her. She stooped first. I don't know what happened to the wild peregrine. I think it chased some ducks over there or something. She seemed to come round the back of this wood here that we've got in front of us, and my GPS tracker, which I've got here, is indicating 60 meters this way, and the height is saying less than 15 meters right now, which indicates to me that she's not perched up in a tree, she's down on the floor. The only reason she's going to be down on the floor is if she's actually caught something. So we now need to go and track in, make sure she's safe, get her secured and see if she's done it. And if she has, then huge step forward, and she's certainly getting to the point where she can go back to the wild, and that's what we're going to have to be doing soon enough. Let's go find her. So up to now, this young falcon, in her free flights that I've been able to give her, has flown over 3,000 kilometres that we've measured on the GPS. She's attained heights at times of over 1 kilometre high. She's stooped numerous times at speeds of 250 kilometres an hour. She's learned about wind, weather and thermals. She's learned about other predators, how to avoid them, how to keep an eye out for them. And now it culminates in this. We now know that she can do this, not only by the data that we've been able to recover and study and see her progression over the months. We can now see this before we ever release her. Now it's time to perhaps think about getting her back to the wild in the next few days. We'll just make sure that the weather's not going to turn nasty and give her at least a few good days of weather. It's not just a case of hope for the best, because now we know. It's right there. She's superbly fit and she's turning into a predator. She's putting all the things together, she's ticking every box, putting it together. And I couldn't ask for any more. That's all the reward I'll ever need out of this.
Falconry-based training and free flying has proven over millennia to be a surefire method of teaching raptors to hunt. In Lucky's case, this was the best thing Michael could do for her to help her on her way back to the wild.
I suppose I should say that we are an entirely self-funded organisation. So if anybody out there fancies helping with regard to sponsorship perhaps, helping to pay for some of the equipment that we use, anything at all really that might help us, then we'd really appreciate that. If you'd like to get in touch with us, we can be contacted via our email or on our Facebook page, which is the Raptor Fliers Association of Western Australia. Thanks very much for watching.